Hello everyone, my name is Junior Makubela and today I'm going to discuss with you mathematics paper 1, but I will only discuss question 1. So this question paper was written in 2022 November and is a grade 12 question paper. So basically I will be doing all these questions one by one. For example, maybe next week I will post question number 2 and then question number 3. So basically when it's your time to write your exam, you can come to revise on how these questions were answered. You already have the question papers with you, or maybe you can find them on the internet. There's actually question papers on the internet. This internet is a link from the government. Yeah, it's something like that. So you can get all these previous question papers. So for today, we're only going to deal with question 1 in the question paper that is from 2022. Next time when I discuss question number 2, I will just get to question number 2 because I have already introduced myself and what I will do from now on. So here is question number 1. The first question is actually solve for x. The second one, which will be solve for x and y, which is a simultaneous. And then we're also going to look at 1.3. Then we're also going to look at 1.4. Basically, in question 1, what they actually do is that they give you solve for x, and they just put in some tricky questions now and then. So what I want you to master is to master question 1. If you can get, for example, let's see, this question paper is 25 marks. So if you can get this 25 marks, this guarantees you at least you will be able to pass. So I just want you to make sure that you practice these questions from different question papers, and then you get a clear idea on how to solve them. So let's go to answer question number 1. So here on question number 1 is they actually say it's 3x minus 6, which is all multiplied by x plus 2 and is equated to 0. You have to solve for the value of x. So how do we solve for x? I don't know if you know the law which is called zero factor law. So basically, zero factor law says that if ever you have a coefficient of any variable or any number or anything which is 0, it means that the answer will be 0. Ne? Let me just try to explain. Let's say, for example, you have b multiplied by x. Please forgive me, I don't know what is happening. I just want to write there. Let me say is b multiplied by x. Ne? So basically here, there's what? X has a coefficient of b. Ne? But also you must be aware now, b has a coefficient of x. So what I was trying to say is that if ever you have a coefficient of something as 0, that means the answer will be 0. I don't know if it makes sense. So like for example, if I put 0 here as a coefficient of bx, the answer will be 0. I don't know if it makes sense. So now let's try to apply this zero factor law. So this zero factor law says that if we can do what? If 3x minus 6 is equals to 0, then the whole thing will be equals to 0. And then 0 is equals to 0, because remember, when you solve for x, what is on your left must be equal to what is on your right. And on your right, we only have 0. So now, if now 3x minus 6 is equals to 0, that means what is on the left, it will all be equals to 0, because we're going to be left with what? With 0 multiplied by x plus 2, which is what? Which is 0. You remember that a coefficient, if ever a coefficient of any number or any variable is 0, that implies everything is 0. So now let's try to get the first value of x. The reason why I'm saying the first value of x, because we can also do the same thing for x plus 2. But we will look at that later. So now here we're going to have what? We're going to have 3x minus 6, which is equals to 0. But then what do? We have to transpose 6, which is negative 6, to the other side. But remember, when we transpose a number from left to the right hand side or from right to the left hand side, it changes the sign. So now we're going to have what? 3x equals to 6. And then when we are here, we have to divide both sides by 3. Please forgive my handwriting. I'm not used to writing with this mouse, but then as time goes, maybe I will get perfect, and then you will get a clear picture and everything. So now this 3 will cancel out, and then x will be equals to 2. So this is the first answer that we get when we do what? When we apply our zero factor law. But that does not mean it's the only answer. Ne? We also have another condition whereby the coefficient can be what? Can be x plus 2. So when the coefficient is x plus 2, you're going to say what? You're going to say x plus 2 is equals to 0. And then we just transpose, we get the value of x to be what? To be minus 2. Okay, so the values of x is actually 2 and minus 2. So if you plug in 2, you will get 0. If you also plug in minus 2, you will also get 0. Remember, if you get only this as 0, 3x minus 6 as 0, that means everything is 0. And also, if you only get x plus 2 as 0, that means everything is 0. So when you substitute your first x, which is 2, you're going to substitute 2 here, and then you're also going to substitute 2 here. You're not going to substitute 2 here and negative 2 there. No. Substitute 2 and 2 there. So this one will not be 0. It will be what? 2 plus 2, which is 4. But then in this side, it will be 6 minus 6, which is what? Which is 0. And then 0 multiplied by 4, it will give us what? It will give us 0. So same will apply to when we put what? Minus 2. Because even whatever value that we get here, which is going to be negative 12, we will get 0 here because it will be negative 2 plus 2, which is 0. And then the product, it will be what? It will be equals to 0 because the coefficient will be 0. So let's move to question 1.1.2. Question 1.1.2, it says what? It says solve for x is actually 2x squared minus 6x plus 1, which is equals to 0. And then they give us a hint. So when they give us a hint like this to say correct to 2 decimal places, that means now we know that our answers are not integers. So we have to use what? We have to use a quadratic formula so that it's easy for us to get the x values. Let's use quadratic formula to get the values. So remember the formula of quadratic is what? Is x is equals to minus b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all divided by 2a. So this is the quadratic formula. Like I said, people, please forgive my handwriting, but when time goes, it will be good. So now, remember, this is your quadratic formula, but then the coefficient of x squared is a, and then the coefficient of x is b, and then constant is actually what? Our c. So basically on our quadratic formula, we have a, b, and c. So we have to substitute the values, and then we get our answers. So here we substitute our values. So it's going to be x is equals to minus b. Please forgive me. So actually our b is how much you open bracket, ne? Because our b is what is -6. You substitute -6, not 6. Remember, this negative is the negative of b, it's not a negative of, yeah, I don't know if it makes sense. But you substitute b as what? As -6. Then you say plus or minus the square root of what? B. B is what? Is -6. -6 squared. Minus 4. What is the value of A? The value of A is 2. And what is the value of C? The value of C is 1. Then all divided by 2. Value of A is how much? Is 2. So after you substitute all the values, the answer that you will get is that x is equals to 2.82, or your x will be equal to 0.177. Okay, so let's do question number 1.1.3. So this question is actually an inequality question. I know an inequality question, most of you have a problem with it. Please pay attention on this one. So basically what is happening, they say what is x squared minus 90 is greater than x. Yeah? So if ever you have an inequality, the first thing that you want to make sure is that you want to make sure that on your right hand side you only have 0, so that you can get your critical values. So we'll first have to transpose this x to come to the left hand side, so that we can only be left with what? With 0 this side. This is the simplest way. So now we say what? We say x squared. When we transpose x to move this other side, is going to be what? It's going to be minus x, because it was positive on that side. And then we have minus 90 is greater than 0. Okay, so when we are here, we want to do what? We want to solve for x the way we used to solve for x. Yeah? For example, we can see this is a quadratic equation. That means we can open 2 brackets here, or we can use quadratic formula. So when we open 2 brackets, we know that the factors of what? We are now going to look for what? For factors of 90, that when we subtract them, give us what? They give us -1. So we're going to look for factors of 90 that when we subtract them, they will give us -1. So you see, this is the last term, which is the constant. So we're looking for factors of 90 that when we subtract, because you're looking at this side, if this sign is negative, it means that we'll have to subtract the what? The factors of this number, so that we can get the value of the middle number. So this second sign is the one that decides if ever the factors are going to be added or subtracted. So when this sign is negative, that means the factors will be subtracted. But when it's positive, that means we are looking for factors that when we add them, they will give us the middle term. But in this case, we are looking for factors that when we subtract them, they will give us what? They will give us -1. So the factors of 90 that when we subtract them is going to give us negative. Actually, 1 is going to be what? It's going to be 10 and 9. So 10 minus 9 is what? Is 1. So now we're just going to place is x here, and then you just place your 9 or 10 there. It doesn't matter where you put it. And then after you place your factors is 9 and 10, you now go what? You check, because this second sign is negative, is the one we're going to have different signs. So now we're going to take what? The sign of the middle term and give it a bigger number. So 10 will have a -1, and then this one will have a positive sign. So now, the values of x that we get, that we solve for, they are not actually the values of x that we are looking for. It's actually the critical values, it's the important values that will actually determine the range in which our solution lies. So now we say the critical values. So remember, when you solve for x, you will get what? You will equate x plus 9 with 0, and then you will get your first critical value as -9. Okay? And then your other critical value is going to be what? X transpose there is going to be what? Is going to be 10. So now you have your critical values as -9 and 10. So the way you put your critical values, you must put the smallest to highest. So basically it's -9 is smaller than 10. So just like that. So I'm just going to erase here, and then I'm just going to plot these critical values on our curve. So after you get your critical values, you now have to plot. You now have to plot your graph. Yeah? You now have to plot your graph. Let me just, sorry. You now have to plot your graph. You just put it here. We said our critical values is what? Is -9 and is 10. You just put them like that. Yeah? But also remember, our equation is actually like this: x squared minus x minus 90 greater than 0. Remember, we want this format. We want it to have 0 on the right hand side. So now, how do we plot our graph? We're actually going to check what? The first thing that we check the coefficient of x squared. So if the coefficient of x squared is positive, that means our graph will have a concave up. It will have a concave up. But now, if our coefficient of x squared was negative, we're going to have a concave down. So, but now we have what? We have a positive value. So that means now our function will be what? Will be a concave up. Remember, this is a quadratic equation, and then this is a quadratic function. So it's going to be a concave up because the coefficient of x squared is what? Is positive. Yeah? And then remember, this line here, it actually represents the x values. But you know, from your Cartesian plane, this is your x values, and then here, these are your y values. Yeah? And then you know that above your x values, above your x axis, you actually have positive y values. Yeah? That means above here, you will have positive values of what? Of y. And then below here, you will have what? Negative values of y. Because below your x-axis, you have negative y values. Above your x-axis, you have positive y values. So now, remember, all this x squared minus x minus 9 is actually a function of which we now draw here, which is a parabolic function. Yeah? And then this inequality says that the function, this function, where is this function positive? Remember, the function is y. F at x is equals to y. Where is y greater than 0? You see that? Where is y greater than 0? Where is the function positive? So the function is positive here. It's positive from here, and it's also positive from here. So your values will be what? Values that what? The values of x that are less than -9, or the values of x that are greater than 10. So this is how you solve an inequality. I don't know if it makes sense. I don't know if I'm explaining it in the right manner, but I will try to solve and give some other questions. Maybe it will make sense. So let's move to the next question. So this next question is still under solve for x. So we have x minus 7x to the, actually is x minus 7 square root x is equals to negative 12. So basically, every time when x is inside the square root, what do we want to do? We want to what? We want to square. Yeah? But the trick part here, you must make sure that you leave the square root as one entity. That means you have to transpose. You can either transpose the x and move it to the other side, or you can transpose 7 square root of x to the other side and transpose negative 12 to the other side, so that you can only be left with one entity that has the square root. So now, what we're gonna do is that we're gonna do what? We're gonna transpose negative 7 square root of x to this side, and we also gonna take what? Negative 12 and transpose it to this side. So we're gonna have what? We're gonna have x plus 12. Remember, when you transpose negative 12 to put the other side, it changes the sign. It's gonna be positive 12. And then when you transpose negative 7 to the other side, it's gonna be positive 7 square root of x. So now that you have the square root of x as one entity on either side, is either left or right, now you can do what? You can square everything. Now when you square everything. You square everything. You can also square everything on this side. Yeah? So remember, when you square on this side, you square the first term is going to be x squared. Then you say x multiplied by 12 is going to be 12x, and then you say multiply by 2, then it's going to be what? It's going to be 24x. And then now you square the last term, which is 12, then you're going to have what? You're going to have 1, 4, 4. Then you also do what? You also square on your right hand side. So now remember, this square, you're going to square what? 7. So 7 squared is going to be 49. And then the square root of x squared is just going to be what? It's going to be x. Then now we're going to take 49, transpose it to the other side. We have x squared plus 24x minus 49x plus 144, which is equals to 0. So our equation will simplify to x squared. You put 24x minus 49, it will give you what? Negative 25x plus 144, which is equals to 0. So now when you are here, you can either use quadratic or you can solve factorize. But if you know you're not good in factorizing, you can use quadratic formula. Even if you know you are good in factorizing, quadratic formula is actually good. You can not make mistake when you use quadratic formula. So now I'm just going to erase here. I don't even know how to use this platform so that I can copy what I've written and put it at the top. But then when time goes, like I said, yeah, we're gonna do some great stuff here. So actually what we had is we have x squared minus 25x plus 144 equals to 0. So now I can erase this part. So now when you factorize, you're gonna get your answer like this. So remember, when you factorize, you look for what? You look for factors of the last term. You look for factors of the last term that When you add them, they will give you 25. So now the factors will be what? Be x here, and then we have 16 and 9. When you multiply 16 and 9, it gives you 144. But when you add them, it also gives you 25. So you can put 9, you can put 16 anywhere. You put it like this. So now you check what? You check this last term. So this last term, it says you must add. So that means the sign of these things will be the same. But now they will take the middle sign, which is negative. So now the value of x will be what? X equals to 9 and x will be equals to 16. We have already explained about the coefficient. If the coefficient is 0, then you just say x minus 9 equals to 0, and then you transpose, you will get what? You will get your answer as 9. And then the same thing here, you say x minus 16 is equals to 0. When you transpose, you will get positive 16. Your x will be what? Your x will be 16. So now we have solved for x in that question. Please forgive me. Please forgive me. There is something that is very much important, but then, yeah, I'll mention it in other video. When you are dealing with sets, you must make sure that you check if ever your answer is applicable or not. So sometimes when your answer will not be applicable. Like for example, if you get for x as a negative number, when you put a square root of a negative number is undefined, so you can't have a solution like that. So you must check when you have sets. Please forgive me that I did not check there, but then we got our answers as what? As 9, positive 9 and positive 16, which means they are both valid. Okay, so now let's move to solve x and y simultaneously. So here we have equation 1, and here we have equation 2. So when you solve simultaneous equation, you actually check how can you make x or y a subject of a formula in a simplest way. So we can see here, you can make, from the first equation, you can make y the subject of the formula by transposing it this side and also transposing 2 to the other side. And also you can make x a subject of the formula, but you have to transpose first and then you also have to divide, which is a long process. Ne? Then you also check for the second equation, you have to divide. Let's say the first one is the one that is simplest. So we can make what? Y the subject of the formula. From equation 2x minus y is equals to 2. So basically, we're going to have what? We're going to have 2x, and then we transpose what? The 2 to the other side, it will be negative 2. Then when we transpose y to the other side, it will be what? It will be positive y. This is our what? Equation 1a. So this is still equation 1, but we just played around with it. So now here, y is now equals to 2x minus 2. So that means you can substitute y into equation number 2. So where you see y, you put 2x minus 2. So it's going to be x into 2x minus 2, which is equals to 4. Yeah? And then look at this. When you have something like this, you can only apply zero factor law if there's 0 here. You can't say this equals to 4 or this is equal to, no. It only applies when there's 0 there. So when it's like this, you have to what? You have to expand, simplify, and then you solve. So you're going to have 2x squared, because it's going to be x multiplied by 2x, which is going to be x multiplied by negative 2, which is negative 2x, which is equals to 4. But then when we take 4, we transpose it to this side, it's going to be what? It's going to be minus 4, which is equals to 0. We see now the coefficient of x squared is 2, and we don't want to have a coefficient of x squared when we do what? When we factorize. But then when you use quadratic, you can just substitute it the same way as it is. So we're going to just divide everything by 2. You divide everything by 2, even on your right-hand side. So we're going to be left with x squared minus x minus 2. So this is what we have. We have what? We have x squared minus x minus 2, which is equals to 0. I'm writing it there so that I can erase here. Okay. So now that we are factorizing, we know that we're going to look forward for factors of 2, that when we subtract them, they will give us 1. This one is straightforward, it's 1 and 2. So you just say x, you can either put 2 here, put 1 there, it doesn't matter. But now you remember, when it's subtracted, that means the sign won't be the same. So you check the sign of the middle one and then you give it the bigger number. Then you apply your zero factor law. That is when you're going to apply your zero factor law. Then your x will be what? Your x will be a positive 2, or your x will be a negative 1. So now you have the values of x, you will have to find the values of y. So what is the simplest way to find the values of y? You can just say, okay, from equation number 2, you will have y. Your y, it will be equals to 4 divided by x. But now your x is what? Your x is 2. You substitute your x as 2, 4 over 2. Or when your x is what? When your x is minus 1. So it's going to be 4 divided by minus 1. So your value of y will be 2. And then your value of y will be minus 4. So when your value of x is 2, your value of y will be 2. And then when your value of x is 1, your value of y will be minus 1. Minus 1, it will be minus 4. So you can just put it into coordinates like this. When x is 2, y is 2. And then when what? When minus 1, when x is minus 1, y is minus 4. I'm very sorry, I'm not writing in order. Forgive me, I will fix that some other time. Okay. Okay, so now we will have to move to another question, which is question 1.3. So they say, show that 2 multiplied by 5 to the power of n minus 5 to the power of n plus 1 plus 5 to the power of n minus 2 is even for all positive integer values of n. So actually the question is asking, when the values of n are integers, are you actually positive integers? You must show that you will get every answer as even when the value of n is a positive integer. So for example, when your value of n is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, will you get 9 moving forward up to infinity? Will you get your answer as even number here? So, okay, let's check here. So remember, if ever you multiply an even number with an odd number or whatever kind of a number, actually an odd number or an even number, you will always get an even number. If you say, let's say 2 multiplied by 2 is 4, 2 multiplied by 3 is what? Is 6. So both the numbers are what? Are even. So if you get an even number multiplied by odd or even number, it's always going to be even. So now what we can see is that we have, like, we can simplify here to say we have 2 multiplied by 5 to the power of n minus 5 to the power of n multiplied by 5 to the power of 1 plus 5 to the power of n multiplied by 5 to the power of 2. Remember, when you multiply the same base, you add the exponent. So I'm just expanding this 2. It was 5 to the power of n plus 1. So it's the same as 5 to the power of n multiplied by 5 to the power of 1. Same applies here. 5 to the power of n plus 2 is the same as 5 to the power of n multiplied by 5 to the power of 2. So now what we can see is that we have a common factor which is what? Which is 5 to the power of n. We can take out the common factor as 5 to the power of n. And then we are left with 2 minus 5. 5 squared is going to be how much? It's going to be 25. 25. Okay? So now we have 5 to the power of n all into, this is going to give us 3, and then negative 3 is going to give us 22. So now, remember, this n is an exponent. Yeah? So 5 raised to the power of any positive integer. Your answer will either be odd or it will be even. Yeah? Like I have explained, if ever you have an odd number or an even number, and then when you multiply it with an even number, that means your final answer will be even. 22 is even, that means your final answer will be even. So you can just give an explanation to say that any integer multiplied by even number, the answer will always be even. I can't write here. Please just, just try to say any integer multiplied by even number, the answer will always be even. So like any number here, even if it's odd or even, but when you multiply it by an even number, which is 22 is even, then your answer will be even. That means we have shown that any possible value, for any positive integer of n, the answer of this expression, it will be even. So this is the last question. The last question, they say we must do what? We must determine the value of x and y. If this is actually a simultaneous equation in one equation, okay? If what? If 3 to the power of y plus 1 all over 32 is equals to the square root of 96 to the power of x. Okay. Okay. So what you have to do in this situation, let's first simplify what is on the left and also simplify what is on the right to see if ever we can get any clue on how to equate the left to the right. So now here on the right we have what? We have 3 to the power of y plus 1, which is divided by 32. But on your calculator, you can write what? You can say 32 and you say equal sign, shift, fact. It will give you what? The answer, it will be 2 to the power of positive 5. 2 to the power of positive 5. We are just writing 32 with a exponential. So we also do the same on our right hand side. So basically we're going to have what? We're going to have to say square root of, we say 96 equal sign, shift fact. Shift fact. then you're gonna have what? You're gonna have 2 to power of 5 multiplied by 3 to power of 1, okay, and all raised to the power of x. So now remember, when you remove this thing, you can just divide by 2. Actually, what I should have done is to say, okay, now we have shift fact 96, and now what we do is that we divide x exponent to get rid of the square root. Remember, the square root is, or when you have a square root, when you have a square root, you can just remove the square root by dividing the exponent of the number. So in this case, the number is 96 to the power of x. So basically the exponent is x. So you're going to divide x by 2. But then 96 is what? Is equals to 22 to the power of 5 multiplied by 3, which is 96, which is one thing, is a product. So all of it is raised to x over 2. So here we can simplify to say is 3y plus 1, and then we just take this 2, we put it at the top, is going to be 2 to the power of negative 5. And then we do here, we multiply the exponents of everything here. So it's going to be 2, 5, x all divided by 2. And then it's going to be what? 3x all divided by 2. Because you see, x all over 2 multiplied by 5 and x all over 2 multiplied by 1. So now when we are here, we can see, oh, okay, we can relate what is on the left with what? With what is on the right. You can see now we have the base of 3 here, we have the base of 3 there, we have the base of 2 here, we have the base of 2 here. That means now, okay, now if ever the exponent of 3 is equal to the exponent of 3 this side, and again, the exponent of 2 is equal to the exponent of 2, that means your left-hand side will be equal to your right-hand side. Yeah? So now we're going to start with the exponent of 2, because we can see the exponent of 2, we can get something here. We can get the value of what? Of x. But when we start with what? Exponent of 3, we're going to have x and y, which is 2 variables on one equation. It will be difficult for us to simplify, but you can just write it first, and then you write the other one secondly, and then you just solve. So no matter where you start, it's still correct. So we're going to say what? Negative 5 is equals to, we make the exponent of 2 to be equal to the exponent of 2. 5x all over 2. When you cross multiply, you will have negative 10. It will be negative 10 is equals to 5x. Then you divide both sides by 5. You divide both sides by 5. And then your x value, it will be what? It will be minus 2. Your x value will be minus 2. Please forgive my handwriting. Your x value will be minus 2. But at least you can hear me, so you can follow me. So now you have your x value as minus 2. That means you can also equate your what? The exponents of the base of 3. So it's going to be y plus 1, which is equals to x all over 2. But you have the value of x, which is what? Which is minus 2. Then you substitute your value of x. You're going to have what? Minus 2 over 2, which means it's going to be x plus 1, which is equals to negative 1. And therefore, when you transpose your y to the other side, your y will be equals to negative 2. That means now you have solved your value of x and y. Thank you very much, good people. My name is JV Makubela. This video is not that good, but anyway, I'm just gonna post it for you guys to try and get some things there. Maybe I will redo this question when I'm used to this technology. Thank you very much.